This is going to be part 4 of the tractor series, and it's a continuation from part 3, logically, but it's a continuation of the preparation for splitting the tractor apart. Again, this video was kind of shot over a year ago, or about a year ago, and you have to kind of excuse the camera adjusting to the light. Sometimes when you start to see a clip, it will be dark and then brighten up as the camera, the light sensor kicks into it. So I'll try and edit as much of that out as I can, but it's going to be in there. So anyways, here's part 4, the continuation of the tractor preparation for the tractor split.
What I did is I just got some heater's tape put on it. When I was talking about replacing these lines or checking them out, I'm not sure whether rubber hosing was the original lines on this, or whether it was steel hose and or steel tubing, and they replaced it. It kind of looks funny the way they ran these things. They're kind of up over the top of the valve cover, right over the top of the engine, so they would be exposed to quite a bit of heat. Take both of them in case one of them comes off or I can't read it after a while. Got a better chance of being able to distinguish one of them than none of them. Standard. Turn the gas off earlier, turn the fuel valve on the bottom of the tank off earlier, but there's probably going to be some residual fuel in this line, or even if the valve holds. Nice, it appears that valve is holding good. Okay, I'll bring it back to the notes. Pulling the tank mount off. Sorry, probably right in your way of just pulling the tachometer cable out. Not sure if taking that thing off would do anything for me. Alright, I'm back. I burned the holes in the second bracket for the transmission and got it up there. The camera, the battery ran out on the camera. Had some people come over. So that's kind of why the pause are in the filming of it. But it was kind of uneventful. All I did was just burn these holes and then got the bracket in position. Okay. Sorry, I stepped in front of the camera. Got to get used to this yet. Tightened up. I should be in the position to be able to start pulling the bolts out to split the tractor in half. There's these two exposed bolts here, and then there's feels like one bolt down below, but I'll bring it back to that. On these bolts, this is a regular 3/4 inch bolt up here, so it's 1 1/8 inch. This is a Torx bolt. Now I do not have any Torx sockets, but what I do have is a 12-point socket, so it's a 3/4 12-point. I'm gonna try that on it, hopefully to break that free, but we'll see what happens when I get into that. Let me get a little more leverage on it. That's a 2-foot breaker bar and I can't get it. Of course, I'm pulling up on it. You don't get as much leverage pulling up as you do when you get your body weight on it pushing down, but let me try standard sockets, tapping sockets. Let me see if I've got an impact socket. Well, I wasn't filming it, but I got it. I had to put a 3-foot cheater bar on the breaker bar to get it loose. Take you over to the other side. There we are on the other side. Still had to put that cheater bar on it to get it. Okay, so now I've got to get the ones that are underneath, which could be a little bit of a challenge. I'll bring you back when I get ready to do them. One of the things that I noticed when I was taking those bolts off of the rails, there's this heater cable. The temperature goes up to the temperature gauge on the tractor, was still connected, so I've got to take that off. Not that I'm at the point where I can separate it now, but I just want to get it done before I forget about it. How does that come apart? That takes a gauge out of the gauge. That's weird. Here's what I got. I took that nut off the back of the water, the temperature gauge, and what it does is it holds that gauge inside of the other gauge. So I got to figure out how to get the cable apart. Let me just hook you back up here. Put this back together and see if there's some other way of doing it. Looks to me like there's a wire inside of it. How would it be a wire though? Because it goes directly from this into the engine block. So if it was a wire, where would it be pulling the power from? Gotta believe it's like a thermocouple. How do you come apart though? Come on baby, give up your secrets. I'll bring you back when I figure it out. Let me give you a little brief rundown of where I am. I was having issues with the heater cable that goes up to the temperature gauge. I could not get it out of the back of the gauge. I actually was able to pull the gauge out of let's call it the dash assembly, and try to get it out with absolutely no luck. I can't get it out. So then I said, okay, let me try and get it out of the block. Because of where it was located, the thermostat in this housing was kind of in the way, and where is it? Here is the thermocouple. What I had to do, I couldn't get a wrench on it. 7/8 wouldn't go, 15/16 was too big. Tried to go metric. 22 wouldn't fit, and I don't have a 23. 24 was way too big. What it was is I ended up having to pull that thermostat housing off. Drain the fluids out. Whoever put this on must have put it on with a crescent wrench or something, and it slipped. What I actually ended up doing is taking a file and filing it down so that the 7/8 wrench would go on it, and I was able to loosen it up with that. But what a task. The other thing that I did was I pulled the oil tubing off that feeds the turbocharger. Got to put a piece of tape over that so nothing gets in it. And that's what was leaking. I had that leak where I would run the engine and oil would be down around here on the block, and I couldn't figure out what it was coming from. I kind of suspected it was that tube that supplies the turbocharger, and I got it off, and it turns out it's cracked. Very hard to see the crack in it, but I got it off, and I can distinguish that it's got a crack in it. So that's kind of where I am. Got to get back and loosen up the bolts underneath to split it, and then I'll go from there. And I'll bring you back when I'm getting ready to do that. I should have everything disconnected now between the two of them so that I can split it. So let me get under there, get them bolts loosened up, and when I get into the splitting phase of it, I'll bring you back. I am gonna shoot a little footage. This is current footage. When I went to edit, put together the video of the tractor split and edit it, I kind of was readdressed to the fact that you never actually saw any footage of the split per se, and I just kind of want to explain it. So this is logically the front half of it, the front stand, and these stands were built and sized in height to the tractor as it sat on the wheels. So you'll kind of note on the back half of it, because I jacked it up and have got it up on stands, that the back half is higher and is kind of tilted forward. Well, that wasn't the case when it was on the wheels. It was on a level plane of the tractor, so the stands were level. So all that we had to do when we pulled the bolts out, got all of the bolts out, is I just got a pry bar in there between the two halves of it and just started working it. Now, the tractor was in neutral, and I could actually, once I had kind of broken that seal, and it's not really a seal, there's no gasket or anything in between those two halves. But over the years, it's, rust has developed in there. It kind of got a corrosion seal type of thing. Once I had broken that, all I actually had to do was get a pry bar in it, a Johnson bar or anything. In the back half, all I had to do was just get on the tires and roll the tires, and it would just drag the stand along. In the same way with the front half. Now the front half was a little harder because you didn't have the giant rear tires to to spin it with. So I just got a Johnson bar and kind of moved it forward with the Johnson bar, but the split was fairly easy. Moving it was fairly easy. Splitting it apart was fairly easy. There was a couple of things that I did. There was this fuel line that I had forgot to disconnect, and it got bent up a little bit. But I can, if I need to. I don't think it's bent where it's kinked and it won't work, but all it is I think it's a fuel return line, actually, out of the pump, the injector pump. But I can replace it if it is kinked or bent bad enough to do it. So I just kind of wanted to insert this into it. And again, this footage is current, not when the video itself was shot. The rest of the videos were shot of this series. Okay, so here's the tractor. As you can see, it was split. I don't have any footage of me splitting it. I actually had a guy, got a guy that's got his car in here, his wife's car. He had an accident with it and he's trying to fix it, replace the radiator and stuff. And he was in here yesterday while I was working on this, and I was trying to give him a hand and do this at the same time. And I kind of new to filming this stuff and didn't get it filmed. Not that I necessarily didn't think about getting it filmed. It's just that again, it's new to me, and just having somebody around when you're doing this is kind of a little bit weird. It's almost like you're talking to yourself. But anyways, here it is. I've got a lot of oil in, okay, let's not call it oil. Let's call it residue, grease inside of the housing for the clutch assembly. The clutch assembly looks fine, and I'm not really seeing any oil leaks like a seal was leaking or anything, so I'm not really sure where that's coming from. I'm gonna take a real good look at it. I'll get it cleaned out. I'm gonna actually move the tractor a little farther apart, but I just kind of wanted to show what was going on so far and what I had done. I've gotten all the lines disconnected except for the throttle line, and I was trying to separate it, and it was giving a little resistance, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And then all of a sudden I realized that I never disconnected the throttle line, and so anyways, I got it apart, didn't do any damage to it in stretching it out a little bit. It just kind of opened up the pump throttle on the pump a little bit, but yeah, no big deal. But anyways, that's where we are. Got to get it separated a little bit farther apart, and then get it jacked up. Gonna jack the back up. I've got to loosen the wheels. Gonna jack the back up, put it up on stands, take the wheels off so I've got easier access around the transmission, and we'll be going from there. So I'll bring you back when I'm getting ready to roll this tractor back a little bit. There's a lot of ways that I could have done it. You could have put it on a rolling jack, a floor jack, and kind of raised this up and then rolled it back with the rollers of the floor jack. I found it just as easy in this case to just take a pry bar and kind of roll it back with a stand, drag it on the ground. I'm going to, when I put it back together, probably won't put it back together this way. It'll probably be raised up on the gantry crane and help to put back together, but this is what I'm doing. Just, it's in neutral, and helps stake break up. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed in when I was rolling the tractor back that I forgot is the fuel return line. I forgot to disconnect that. Also didn't take into consideration the wiring harness, which actually has enough room in it to get over for the split, but there's a kind of a lot of things that you kind of overlook or forget when you're going to do this split. You think you got all your bases covered, and then when you start splitting it apart, you kind of find things that you forgot. But anyways, it's separated to the point where I want it right now. The wiring harness will be good. There's enough slack in it in case I move it around at all during that time. If I don't, I can always most of the wiring harness to the front of the tractor has been disconnected. The only thing that's really connected is the alternator, so I could disconnect that and just take that wiring harness back, put it on the back half of the tractor. But anyways, that's it for now. Bring you back when I start removing the tires and jack the back half up. Seriously? Okay, we'll come back.